Welcome, everybody. It is such a pleasure to welcome you all to UCLA to the fourth installment of the Bedari Kindness Institute's Compassionate Conversations series. My name is Maya Ferdman. I am the Deputy Director of the Bedari Kindness Institute. And within the Institute, we also have something called the Dialogue Across Difference Initiative, of which I'm the Staff Director. And tonight's program is co-sponsored by those two efforts. Oh, welcome. I love our young audience. I love it. We're starting higher education even younger these days, if you haven't noticed. So the Compassionate Conversations series is an effort to model on our campus what it looks like to engage with both passion and compassion. And I can think of no better example to model that kind of compassion than the members of the Parents Circle Family Forum that we are welcoming today. We believe that the capacity to navigate differences, to be able to hold compassion in the face of the starkest of differences is essential. It's an essential part of building a robust community of discourse foundational to really our mission as a public university or as an institution of higher learning in general. And I'll say we're thrilled to welcome Layla, Moore, and Shiri as well from the Parents Circle Families Forum to UCLA. They are exemplary models of what it means to hold compassion in the face of violence and really horrific loss. And before I introduce Shiri Orion, who will then provide a bit more information about Parents Circle and what they do, as well as Professor David Myers, who will moderate the conversation with our guests, I want to first offer you all an invitation. First, you may hear something today that's challenging and may cause some discomfort. In fact, I can almost guarantee it. And so I want to invite you all in the next 2 hours to really lean into that discomfort and what it can produce and provide for you. What can we learn from that kind of discomfort and engagement across real stark difference? If you do also experience that discomfort, I want to invite you to think about what does it take to meet it with compassion, both compassion for yourself and compassion for others around you. The schedule for the next 2 hours is as follows. First, I'll invite Shiri to share a few remarks. Then Professor Myers will join Moore and Layla on the proverbial stage to share their stories and engage in a conversation. And then we'll open it up for Q&A from the audience, and you'll get to engage with them. And after that, once we've heard from our speakers and you've had a chance to engage, we're actually going to invite those of you who are interested to stay for a little bit longer and to engage in reflection with one another, to actually meet at least one other person tonight, maybe two or maybe three that you haven't talked to before, and to reflect, to react, to grapple, and even to engage across difference in the spirit of what we're going to be learning from Moore and from Layla. And I and David and others may come around and support your conversations as needed. I want to say we're committed with the Bedari Kindness Institute and the Dialogue Across Difference Initiative to create an environment where that kind of engagement is possible. And so toward that end, we have a few announcements and a few requests that we want to make. First, you might have noticed a few cameras around here. We got this boom mic, which is really cool, and it makes me feel like I'm in Hollywood finally, And I'll say there's two reasons for this. One, we're filming this event to post later and to take a few photos for marketing purposes for the Institute. And second, tonight's event is also being filmed for a PBS docuseries titled Black and Jewish in America, an Interwoven History, that's hosted and executive produced by Dr. Henry Louis Gates Jr. So part of that series, while tonight's content is not explicitly about Black-Jewish relations in America, that series is covering a chronicle of campus dialogue, including our work here at UCLA, to build a vibrant culture of engagement across difference in the wake of October 7th and the encampments and just the great upheaval that we've all experienced here in LA and across the country and the world. And so if for any reason you do not want to be filmed for PBS, please let one of the producers know. We have Rachel and Phil. Maybe you can wave. You can let them know at any point. You can tell them afterwards. And even if you ask a question later in the program that applies, you could tell them, I'd rather not be included in this. Further, you as attendees are welcome to take photos and videos of us as you wish, but we do want to ask you to please refrain from taking photos or videos of anyone else in the room without their explicit consent. And finally, a note on the conversation that we intend to have today. We absolutely welcome and in fact encourage dissent or differences of opinion, and we hope that you vocalize them both in the Q&A and in the small group discussion. And that said, we just ask that you please refrain from interruption or disruption throughout this part of the program, or throughout the program. That's both a UCLA regulation, of course, and an important part of our dialogue across difference guiding ethos. And later, I'm going to share a few guidelines and suggestions for those small group dialogues with one another, for how we might want to engage to really model what it looks like to have a dialogue across difference. So I'll say one more note, and then I'll invite Shiri to the stage. I just want to thank our partners in the Division of Social Sciences, Dean Valenzuela, Peter Evans, Hillary Nadworny, who have been really wonderful partners, and of course, our Dialogue Across Difference staff, Felicia Graham. We have our interns, Celie and Shreya, who've been fundamental. We have Martin and Alyssa, who are also part of our team, who really, without whom this would not be a reality. So thank you all. And so with that, I'd like to introduce Shiri Orion, the Executive Director of American Friends of the Parents Circle Families Forum, who will then introduce Layla Moore and bring Professor Myers to the stage to share their story with you all. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for being here. Thank you to the Bedari Kindness Institute and UCLA for hosting us. This is very moving to see such a big crowd here tonight, and I just want to take a minute and recognize that you didn't have to be here tonight. You chose to be here tonight, and that takes strength, courage, and passion. We're honored to be here as models of passion and compassion. You're going to hear two incredible moving stories tonight. And when you hear them, I want you to remember a few things. First, these two bereaved women, behind them are 800 other families, bereaved Israelis and Palestinians, that make up the membership of the Parent Circle. We're one of the few organizations that say we don't want any new members because the price of membership is way too high. In fact, that's one of the missions of our organization, is to prevent any more families from experiencing bereavement, from experiencing the same pain as these two women. And that is often what fuels them and so many of our members. We have nearly a 20-person staff, Israelis and Palestinians, who these days getting up to go to work is no easy task. The future doesn't look very promising for peace right in this minute, and yet they are committed peace activists, peacemakers, educators that get up every day and continue to believe and fight for peace. We have a joint Israeli and Palestinian board, and those words sort of roll off my tongue very easily, but that is no small miracle. For Israelis and Palestinians to make joint decisions, to be a joint governing body, to sign every check together, to vote on every decision together. Moore is the president of that board, and we threw her into the deep end, whether she wanted to or not, very quickly. And she'll tell you more about that. I also want to add to Maya's invitation tonight before we continue, because we've been speaking on many, many college campuses, and we've been speaking in dozens of communities, if not hundreds of communities around the United States and around the world. And the request that we make for everybody before we speak is we ask you to take your social media posts and put them aside for a minute. Imagine in your mind that you're doing that. Your posters that you may have taken to protests and demonstration, put them down. Any flags that you might have an affinity for, just fold them for a minute and set them aside, just momentarily. And listen from your heart. We created a program called Listening from the Heart. You have information about it. It is a wonderful resource for communities all over the world to use that models what you're going to see tonight. So I encourage you to look into that resource. I'm now going to introduce you to my dear friends, some new, some longer. We've had the privilege of spending the week together in LA. We've seen a lot of your highways. Thank you. I think one of the most incredible experiences for me over this past week has been the conversations that we've had the privilege of having, just getting to know each other as human beings. We've talked about motherhood, religion, feminism, everything, politics, and we've really had a great chance to get to know each other. So it's my privilege now to introduce you to Leila El-Sheikh, who is a bereaved mother from the West Bank. She lives in a village called Batir near Bethlehem. And to Mori Non, who is a bereaved daughter from Tel Aviv in Israel. And together in conversation tonight will be Professor David Myers, who it is our pleasure and privilege to introduce. He's been a long friend of the parent circle and has been part of advising us on listening from the heart. And we're grateful for you tonight and always for your support. Thank you.
Okay, can you hear me? Great. I just want to begin with the observation that there's nothing better than a multi-generational room. And this is a reminder that we might want to silence our cell phones. But when I mean multi-generational, I really mean multi-generational this time. And there's something magic about that. So thank you all for coming, and thank you, Shiri, for making this opportunity available to us. We're so deeply grateful, and what a great privilege it is to be in conversation with both Laila and Mor. So let's really begin at the beginning, which is with the question of how did you make your way to the parent circle?
First of all, thank you all for coming to listen to us. It's so important for us to be here to share with you and to talk to you about our experience about the situation now. So my story started even before I was born. My family, they are originally from Bethlehem, but my father went to Jordan to teach the children in the refugee camp. After that, the war was started in 1967, and as you know, at that time, the Israeli government closed the border, so they are not allowed to return back. So because of that, me and my siblings was born in Jordan. But I love Palestine from what I heard from my father. He has thousands of stories about his childhood, family, about his life there. So it's become like a dream for me to return back, to live there, to visit all the places, all the people. And that was happened in 1999 when I met my husband. He came for a visit and we met, we engaged, we returned back to Palestine. And I thought the dream come true and everything will be great, and that's it. First 2 years was really amazing after we have our 2 children. But after time, the second uprising started, and during that time, the Israeli government took another decision not to give people like me who came from Arab countries a Palestinian ID. So that meant I can't go freely from place to place, and most of the time I should stay at home. I couldn't see my family in Jordan. But I convinced myself just maybe it's a chance now to take care of my children, of my husband, until I could see my family in Jordan. And we become so happy to have both of them, and we start to have planned for their future. That happiness was ended 11th of April 2002, 4 o'clock in the morning, when my son, Qusay, that was his name, he was at that time 6 months old. He woke up in very critical condition because at that night the Israeli soldiers came to my village. They threw tear gas, and because of that he became so sick. So when we tried to take him to a hospital inside Bethlehem, because we live in a village, the Israeli soldiers prevented us, and they said, it's a military zone, you can't enter. So the next chance was to take him to Hebron, the next city to Bethlehem, but again they prevented us and they said that the main road is closed. The last chance was to take him to Hebron, but we should take a rough and long road between villages. But again, for the third time, the Israeli soldiers stopped us. They tried to search the car. They started to search the ID of my husband, my father-in-law. And my father-in-law tried to talk to them to convince them to let us go because our son should be in a hospital as soon as possible, but they didn't listen. So I started to think to take a risk, and that risk will be if they find that I don't have a Palestinian ID, maybe they will send me to jail or send me back to Jordan, and I will never see my children again. But that moment, the only thing that I care about and think about, how could I save my son? So I went to talk to them, then they start to laugh at me and ask me to return back to the car. Imagine they stopped us more than 4 hours. Every minute was so important to save his life. I hold him. He was dying between my arms. And as a mother, I feel hopeless. I couldn't do anything to save his life. When we reached the hospital, the doctor said it's too late to save his life. If he will stay alive after 48 hours, he will be handicapped. A few minutes later, they take him to the intensive unit care. A few hours later, he died. And I remember when the doctor came to tell us that he passed away, I felt his word was like a bullet comes to my heart, smash it down for many pieces. Didn't know what to do. I started to cry like crazy because that was the first time I felt hopeless. As a mother, I should protect my son, and I couldn't do that. I was filled with hatred, anger, especially for the Israeli, because for me, all of them were responsible about his death. But at the same time, I didn't want to take revenge, because revenge will bring another innocent people to this cycle of violence, because I will never ever know their names or where they came from. And revenge will never bring my son back. But the other thing that I think about, that I don't want to have any kind of relationship with any Israeli, whatever that cost me. We try to live, but the life will never be the same. I always felt, and until today, there's part of my soul, part of my heart is missing. For 3 years, my husband, my family tried to convince me to have another child, and for 3 years, I refused. And one day, my doctor asked me, why you didn't want to have another child? I said, why I will have him if finally I will lose him? If not in early age, maybe when he grow up, he will be part of this cycle of violence and he will go to jail at the rest of his life. But finally, after those 3 years, we have another boy, and I give him the same name because I didn't want to forget anything. I didn't want to forget any details about what happened to him. Time passed, and after 16 years, I met one of my friends that I didn't saw for a long time. So he started to talk to me about the Burn Circle and how he joined, and I stopped him and I said, are you crazy? You know what happened to me? How could you ask me to be in this organization with Israelis? And he said, I'm going to ask you a question. Why until now you couldn't tell your other children about what happened to their brother? I said, because I didn't want them to be part of this cycle of violence. If they know, they start to think to take revenge. And I lost one of them, and I'm not ready to lose another one. So he said to me, so maybe this will be a good chance, not just to protect your children, maybe other families. And I thought he's crazy, and he imagined that, because in my whole life, I didn't heard about these kind of organization. So he started to call me every 3 days, 4 days, to talk to me about the Burn Circle, and every time he spoke, I'd take the phone like that. I didn't want to listen to him. And one day, he called me and he said, there is a conference in Bethlehem for the Bedari Circle and you should come. I said, yeah, of course, just to make him stop talking. That day in the morning, I started to think, what kind of excuse I should tell him because I didn't want to go there. And then he called me and he said, get dressed, I'm waiting you in the car. I know that you try to find excuse because you don't want to go there. And I say, oh my God, he'll never leave me alone. I should go there just to make him stop talking. So when we arrived, it was a big room like this, and there were just Palestinians. We sat, we talked. 5 minutes later, when the Israeli entered that room, I felt something egg me in my chest. I didn't want to be with them. I didn't want to see them. And I tried to leave. Then he convinced me just to sit, to listen. Since we were arguing about that, I saw something really amazed me. For the first time, I saw the Israeli, the Palestinian laugh, hug each other, kiss each other like a family members. And I said to myself, oh my God, they are so crazy, how they could do that. Then I convinced myself just to sit, to listen. I want to know what's the thing that makes them so close to each other like that. To listen to the Palestinian stories, that was something familiar for me because I know most of these kind of stories. But when the Israelis started to talk about how they lost their beloved ones, I was really touched and moved. Because that was the first time I heard their stories. For the first time, I felt we shared the same pain. We shared the same tears, even if we had different circumstances, but we're still human. And nothing worse than losing a child or a family member, and no one could understand that pain unless someone be in the same situation. So I decided to participate in one of the projects. It's the main project in the forum called Bedari Narrative Project, which give a chance for both sides to sit face to face, to talk, to listen, to learn from each other. We met for 8 times during 3 months. We went to visit Yad Vashem Museum to learn much more about the Holocaust. We even went to visit a Palestinian village was existed before 1948. It's not about comparing the pain, it's about understanding, it's about learning. And I remember the first thing they asked us to do is to talk about something happened during the conflict effect of life. And that was the first time I could speak about my son. Even between me and my husband, since his death, we didn't speak about him. And that was like open the window again, bring the memories, the anger, the pain. I started to cry, I couldn't complete the story. And there's an Israeli woman came forward and she started to apologize. And she said, yeah, I didn't hurt you, but the people who hurt you from my own people. And I'm a mother too, I could understand your pain. I could understand the word that you couldn't say, and she came and hugged me. Both of us started to cry. To be honest, that was the first time I felt someone care about me, someone could understand me, even if I couldn't say a word. From that day, I decided to be a member of the forum, start to give lectures inside Israel, Palestine, travel around the world to spread the message of peace and reconciliation. And I thought I made everything right, and that's it. But life didn't leave me alone. 3 years ago, I've been in Jerusalem with other colleagues, and there were other people from other organizations. And after we spoke about our story, there's an Israeli man that I know. He was sitting there, he started to cry, and I thought he was just emotional. And then when he stand up and he started to talk about his story, he mentioned that he was a high officer in the army and he served in my area. And then he said that he prevented a Palestinian car which had sick children from going to a hospital. Then it's become real. It's become in front of my whole life. I didn't thought that I would meet one of those soldiers, and to be him in front of me, that was too much for me. I didn't know what to do. I started to cry. And one of our friends asked us to go outside to talk. And he said to me, look, Layla, I know this is hard for you and it's hard for me, but at the same time, it's so important to tell you that part of my story. And then he said, after time, my son became sick, and when I tried to take him to a hospital, the guard stopped me because he want to ask me a few questions. I was in a hurry, and then I realized what I did to the Palestinian. And he quit from the army. He refused to serve again, and because of that, they sent him to jail. After he came out, he established another organization with ex-Palestinian prisoners to end the occupation, to start to work in the ground to make a difference. And I looked at him and I said, look, him, this is so hard for me to listen to you. But at the same time, I want to thank you because you didn't hide that part of your story. And I want to thank you because you have that courage and that honest to speak in front of me. And now I could forgive you. Then I realized this is the real reconciliation. It's so easy to speak about love, peace, all these lovely words, but sometimes we ask ourselves if we really meant every word we say, if we really meant everything we did. That day, I realized that this is the thing that I want. And I remember a dream I have it at the same day when my son died. I have a dream there's a white dove came and stand on my shoulder and said to me, "Mama, don't cry. I'm so happy. I know that he's happy with God. He's just 6 months old." But I couldn't stop crying from that day until today. But at the same time, I didn't understand why he came as a white dove. And when I became a member in the forum, I realized that was kind of a message from God to tell me this is your new mission. And he didn't want the death of my son went without achieving something. And because of that, that always gave me hope to continue, even in these dark times. Since the 7th of October until today, I think all of you will know what's going on in Gaza and Israel, but no one pay attention to what happened in the West Bank. Since the 7th of October until today, we're still under closure. There is no freedom of movement. All the people who work inside, they lost their jobs. So the economic situation in the lowest point now. Most of the children, they couldn't go to their school. If they are lucky, they could go just for one day in the whole week. We didn't have shelters. In my village, as I remember, there's 10 rockets fell down. We didn't know if it's from Hamas, if it's from Iran, if from the Iron Dome, because these kind of rockets will never recognize between a Palestinian or Israeli. Most of the time, my children be terrified. My youngest daughter, she's now 9 years old. She couldn't, until today, sleep by herself. She always want me to be beside her. And the worst part of all of this is the settlers. They every day attack the Palestinians. They burn their cars, their houses. They attack them everywhere. Like last year, as you know, we have olive seasons. And most of the Palestinians couldn't go to their land to pick up olives, but the settlers attacked them. And the worst part of this, even, when the Israeli soldiers came to support them or encourage even them, and if a Palestinian tried to protect himself or to defend or do something, they will arrest him. So imagine a life like that. And now, or for a few months, they start to put gate in front of every village, every city. And it's totally different than a checkpoint. The checkpoint, you could find a soldier, he could prevent you or he could allow you to move. But this gate, if they close it and there's no limited time or any time specific to lock it, if you have urgent case or if you be late in your work and you return back, you couldn't go back to your house. So imagine a life like that every day. Because of that, we still have hope to make a change. We know that will happen one day. We didn't know when, we didn't know how. But we try to do our best because we believe that every soul is so precious. And God created us to love and to live, not to kill each other. Thank you so much.
Hi. Thank you, everyone, for coming. It is so difficult for me every time to speak after Laila because I feel my heart aches. And I feel so sorry for Laila to having to go through what the pain and suffering that she has gone through because something that my people did. Even though we can discuss a lot of time about responsibility, personal responsibility, but it's very difficult for me. And I'm asked sometimes by my friends, how can I do what I do? How come I could join the parent circle so quickly after October 7th? And how can I put my grief and anger aside and be part of this parent circle, and for me it is easy because if Laila can be part of this organization after everything she has gone through and still is going through, then who am I? So until October 6th, I had a regular sort of normal life. I was born in a kibbutz, Niram. It's right on the border of Gaza. My parents moved to live in Moshav Netiva Asara, not far away from the kibbutz. On the eve of October 6th, I hosted my extended family in my apartment in Tel Aviv. We celebrated Sukkot. It's a Jewish holiday. It was a wonderful evening. My parents came over, my aunt, my siblings. We were dancing, laughing, singing, and we felt very happy and very lucky to be around the people we loved. Around midnight, my parents decided to head back to their house in Moshav Netiva Asara, which is a 60-minute drive south of Tel Aviv. I asked them and tried to convince them to stay over because I was afraid for them to drive during the night. But my father always said that he'd prefer to sleep in his bed. And I hugged them and told them that I love them, which I did every day in my life. Every phone call I had with my mom or dad, I told them that I love them. And so at least I know that they know that they were loved. And the morning of October 7th started for me at 7:45. I didn't wake up to the sirens in Tel Aviv. My sister woke me up. She told me that something was going on in the south and that she was worried about my parents. I turned on the television and I saw the image of the Toyota Jeeps with Hamas people on them driving in the roads, on the Israeli roads. And I remember telling my husband at that very moment that my parents were not going to survive this day. I don't know how I knew, but I had this feeling. We had a WhatsApp message from my father at 7:34 saying that they were in the safe room, that they were hearing shootings and shoutings. We called them, there was no answer. And in retrospect, what we learned was that at 7:45, two Hamas people entered the house, shot them, and set the house on fire. There was nothing left. There were no remains. We didn't get any official notice about the death for weeks. The army actually notified us about my father's death 4 weeks after October 7th. My mother was the last missing person from October 7th because they were not able to identify any DNA in the remains. So they had to set up a special committee to announce her death. I remember in the beginning that in the morning of October 7th, I felt so helpless and frustrated. I knew that my parents were in danger, but I couldn't do anything to save them. And then quite fast, I became very functional, and I felt that what we had to do was to get all the family together, that I had to convene all my siblings together and be together so we can just be around. And we all got at my sister's place, and in the evening we were able to reach a security officer from the Moshav who told us that there were no remains and there were no hostages from the Moshav. So we decided that my parents passed away. We didn't wait for any official notice. Also, we knew that we would not have religious funerals, so we decided to sit Shiva. On October 8th, in the morning of October 8th, we started the Shiva, which is the Jewish week of mourning. And we were in shock. I mean, it was such a brutal separation, so sudden to lose both my parents. And beyond my parents, we lost many 20 more people from the immediate community of my parents were also killed, and many other people that we knew from the kibbutzim in the area, from Bedari and Kfar Aza and the other kibbutzim. We were in a state of shock. But a couple of days into the Shiva, we as a family came out with a very clear voice, not to revenge the death of my parents. My parents and the values that we grew up with were to value life and to respect others. And we thought that revenge would only bring to more revenge and will increase the violence. And it was very important for us to disengage for any personal revenge. And after the Shiva, I went back to Tel Aviv. I remember being very, very sad. And I didn't know how I could go on with my previous life. I was a VP in a high-tech company. And after a month, I went back to work, but I couldn't focus on anything. Everything seemed so meaningless. And I decided to join the parent circle. And a few weeks after I joined, I decided to become a board member. And very soon I became the president of the board and decided to quit my day job. And today I just do volunteering work with the parent circle. And it has been quite a journey for me.
Thank you both, Lila and Mor. Each of your stories is unbearably painful and so powerful. And thank you so much for the courage to come and share them with us. Lila, I want to ask you, because you mentioned very briefly one of the sentiments or emotions you experienced after your son died, and that is hate. And it would seem very natural in such a situation to harbor a great deal of hate toward those responsible for the death of your infant son. Can you tell us what you did with that emotion that came to you, that was so natural, and yet seems to have somehow disappeared? What was that process like to confront your hate?
To be honest, it took me many years because I didn't know how to deal with this pain in the beginning. And I thought I'm the only one who's been in that situation. Even I ignore my husband, ignore my daughter, and I thought I'm the only one who lost. And my husband didn't care about that, especially one day when I returned back home and I found him collect his toys, collect his clothes, and even his bed, and take them away. And I asked him what you are doing, and he said, I want to make them away, because if you stay like that, you will be crazy, because most of the time I've been cleaning one of the room and heard his voice crying. Went to his bed, I found it empty. I take his blanket, start to cry. And he said, I want to protect you. And I said, you are worse than the Israeli. They took his life, and now you want to take all his memory away from me. And I thought we fight, and I didn't speak to him for maybe 2 weeks or more than. And I always thought that I'm the only one who's grieving. And I realized that after maybe a few years that was a big mistake. Because even that affect my health. I remember one of our members, he said something, and really it hit me. He said, the anger eats you alive. And that's what really happened to me. And that hatred didn't allow me to even have a natural relationship between me and my daughter. it was like there's a wall between me and her. I didn't know how to deal with her. I didn't know how to do that again, to be a mother again.
What happened? How did you then move past it? What was there a moment, or was it a process?
No, it was like a process by time. I started to convince myself this is not good for you, this is not good for the people around you. And that's it. But I remember when I became a member in the forum and I started to understand what's going on, that even gave me a chance to return me back to my beliefs. As a Muslim, I believe in Quran, I believe in all the scripture, and there's a script said, you can't judge all people because of mistake of one person. I know it, I believe in it, but because I was filled with hatred, I didn't work with it. So even that gave me a chance to return back to my beliefs.
Yeah, and I just remember that shared teaching of the Hebrew Bible and the Quran that says, if one saves one life, it is as one saves the entire world. A shared tradition.
But as they said, sometimes it's better to learn late than
never.
Yeah, than never.
Better learn late, never. So, more. I did not hear you mention the word hate. It would be a very natural impulse or emotion to feel. You jumped right into Shiva after the terrible events of October 7th. What was that transition like for you emotionally to move so quickly from rage and shock to mourning and grief? And then, almost remarkably, to quit your day job and become the president of the board of Parent Circle.
I didn't have the hate stage, not against Hamas. I was very, very angry, and sometimes I'm still very angry at the Israeli army for not being there to protect my family. I'm angry at the Israeli government for not taking responsibility, for investing so much money in building the most sophisticated fence in the world that didn't help to protect my parents. My father always used to say that they were living 95% of the time in heaven, and 5% it was awful because of the rockets that were shot at their village. But they felt very secure. And every time, sometimes I try to challenge him, how come you feel secure to live where you are? And I lived in Tel Aviv, but we used to go there a lot, and my kids used to travel there on their own, and we were so lucky we were not there at that night because we should have been. And he felt very secure, and my anger was directed at the Israeli side, because in my opinion, Hamas did what they always said they would do, and they did their job in a way, but Israel was not there to protect them. So my anger was not directed at the Palestinians, but rather internally, which is also complicated. So
I want to flip it now. We talked about hate, and you said that wasn't something you experienced, anger at your own government for its failures in protecting you. Was there a moment at which you felt very palpably the opposite of hate, a measure of compassion and even kindness for, say, Lila, as you made your way into the Parent Circle? I'm curious, like, you're in this work and you've made it your life. What's the reservoir from which you draw to possess and project out kindness and compassion in the world? It seems almost unimaginable.
Yes, so my parents raised us to never judge people based on their background, but rather to judge people based on their values and actions. So I feel closer to Lila because we share similar values today than I am to some of my neighbors because I don't share the same values with them. So for me, it's something very internal or intrinsic in me, that I don't see Laila as my Palestinian enemy. I see Laila as a woman who shares the same values as I am.
And Laila, you worked through that hate, and yet you live in very difficult conditions, under occupation, in the West Bank. And there's a very terrible war that continues to go on in Gaza, with many Palestinians being killed on a daily basis. Where do you find the source of kindness and compassion that you manifest so clearly in your actions, say with Mor and others who are part of the parent circle? Where does that come from? I'm just curious, is that a matter of your faith?
Of course, first of all, it comes from faith and from how your parents raised you. And the other part, that when I start to meet the Israelis, sit with them, talk to them, I start to understand. I understand how they feel. We are human. And I start to feel that we are victims. All of us are victims of that regime around us, that they don't care about us. When they tried to make war, they will never came to ask me or to ask more. And even when they tried to make peace, they will never came to ask us. They do whatever they want without even care what we need, what we want.
They are the political leaders.
Yes, the political
on both sides,
leaders.
You're saying.
Yes. And we are the people who suffer daily from this occupation. Both sides. I will never just say the Palestinian, even the Israeli suffer from this occupation.
What do you mean by that? That's interesting.
Like, if they are not feeling secure, they are not feeling that they are welcoming, they feel afraid, they have the same feeling that we have. Because we didn't have that just wall of cement. We have walls of hatred, anger, and knowing each other.
What are your thoughts about this?
I agree. I can't agree. I think it's very important to put yourself on the other person's shoes. When I joined the board, we had the first board meeting over Zoom, because it's very difficult for Israelis and Palestinians to meet these days. Palestinians don't get permits to come to Israel, and it's not so natural for us, for Israelis, to cross the border to the West Bank. And after the first board meeting that we had over Zoom, I felt that as the board of this organization, we have to be setting the example of dialogue, of true acknowledgement, and how can we possibly do it over Zoom? And the next board meeting that we had was in Bedari, which is in the West Bank. It's Territory C. We are passing through Territory A to get there, very short distance, so it's not 100% legal for Israelis to get there, but luckily everyone agreed. And I went there the week before the board meeting to prepare it with my Palestinian partner. And he took me in his car to Bethlehem. I saw the separation wall from the other side of the territory. I saw the separation wall next to Rachel's grave. I don't know if you ever been to Israel, and you saw it from the Israeli side, but you can't imagine how horrible it is to see it from the Palestinian side, because they broke down cemetery, like thousands. It's unbelievable. And he took me to the Dahaisha camp, refugees camp, and I was not afraid. I was there after October 7th. I felt very safe because I was with my Palestinian friend. And it was a mind-blowing day for me. Coming back to Israel, I thought what I really wanted to do was to scream and shout at everyone, to take all the government officials and all the Israeli parliament members for one day to be with Ahmad on the other side of the separation wall. Maybe, if we do it, the politicians will do something else.
So let's maybe pursue that a little bit more, because one of the things that has occurred in Israel, as you know well, after October 7th, was that it induced a very deep trauma.
Yeah.
And that very deep trauma has generated rage and anger and oftentimes blindness towards the suffering of the other. It's intensified those feelings very deeply. And you just suggested something that, might help us overcome that, to expose people to the actual lived experience of the other. In practical terms, what do you think we can do to break that cycle of violence where the victim becomes the victimizer, and then the victimizer becomes the victim again, and then it goes on and on and on?
So I know what I can do. I can set a personal example, first of all, to my kids and to my immediate family and close friends. And I can, in everywhere where I go, I can speak about it. And I think we spoke about it before, about the dehumanization of the other side. I can't understand it. I'm struggling with it. I don't understand how we can ignore the suffering of the other side, how we can dehumanize them. This is something that I'm personally struggling with. I don't understand how to overcome it yet, besides what I'm doing.
What about you, Lila? You must think about this, the cycle, and you think about your kids like more, and will they continue? And you have an interesting story to tell about your daughter as well. But what do you think we can do to break this cycle of dehumanization and unwillingness and even blindness to see the suffering of the other, which seems to be at the heart of...
We always said, if you are not part of the solution, don't be part of the problem and leave us alone. We could solve that by ourselves. And I think that if our leaders brave enough and they intelligent enough and they could put our effort together, we will be the greatest country in the whole world. But unfortunately, this is not happening now. So we couldn't sit aside and just watch and waiting for them to do something. We believe in reconciliation. And reconciliation, it didn't mean that we agree about everything. We sometimes disagree, but we still respect each other. We still understand each other. We could work together to even explain some definition of some words, because we came from a different religion, we came from a different culture. And I think that it's like a responsibility that we should do to bring a better life, not just to us, but even to our children, to our grandchildren, because they deserve to live a normal life. And when I look to my children every day, I say to myself, you can't lose hope. You should do something for them, even if that was like a little bit. But we believe it's like a house. You can't build it just in one day. You could build it day after day, do something every day. And even God, if God who created the world, He created in 6 days, He could do like that, but He do it step by step. So we take that example, and some of our friends said, our work, it's like take water from the ocean with a spoon. We know it's a little, we know that maybe some people, we think we are crazy, but if I look to our organization, it was just a thought in Ishaq Frankenthal mind. And now we become more than 800 families. And imagine every family how much member there are. And after the war, we thought that many people will leave the organization, but just maybe 3 families left, and many other joined the parent circle. That shows that there's many people start to understand and realize war is not the best solution. We need to sit, we need to work together, to live together. This is the only thing that we care about and think about.
Yeah.
Yes, so I had time to think about it. So I think we need to amplify our message, and I think all of us can help us to amplify our message and our personal story. And even what is very important for me, the fact that this organization exists after October 7th, in a way is a miracle. And we have a joint staff, almost 10 Israelis and 10 Palestinians who continue to work together. And it's not trivial. And some of the conversations that we are having are difficult. And we need to invest in the team, invest in our co-directors, because they are the core of this organization, and we need to invest in our community to keep having this dialogue and to keep having these conversations. It's quite difficult.
Yeah, I'm actually curious in the organizational piece of that. You're the president of the board, and any chair of a board's or of the organization's board knows there are always tensions lurking beneath the surface. So I'm curious. I mean, all the more so when you have such incredible emotional and psychological charges at all times. What's it been like for you to guide this board in this period?
It's a journey. I have a Palestinian
co-chair.
It's so formally he's not a co-chair, but I regard him as a co-chair, and I think it's a key to success. We don't need we don't need two presidents, but I think I treat him as a co-chair. He's been in the organization for many years, so for me he's also a mentor. And I believe in working in transparency and in asking questions and admitting wrongdoings. I even remember it's the first time I joined the board, and I come from a high-tech company, and I didn't think I needed to ask for a permission to send out the agenda for the board meeting. And I sent out the agenda for the board meeting, and my counterpart joined the board meeting, but he was very quiet, and he didn't speak, and he was not involved, and I didn't understand what was going on. So at the end of the board meeting, I sent him a WhatsApp. Was everything okay? Did I do anything wrong? And he said, yes, you sent out the agenda without consulting with me before. And I realized that in order to be in full partnership, I need to work to be over-transparent and to do over-consultation. So I bring these qualities to the board, and it is challenging, and we always have dramas, and some of the dramas are not related to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, but some are, and some issues that I thought I even didn't understand what the issue was turned out to be an Israeli-Palestinian drama, because sometimes we need to understand that we are operating a joint organization, and maybe sometimes we will not be 100% effective or efficient because we need to cater also for the conflict. So I'm a fast learner.
I'm sure you are. So I just programmed out to the audience. I'm going to ask 1.5 more questions, and then we'll open up for your questions. I want to ask a question that you confront, or a question about a challenge that you confront often, which is the fact that there are people in the world who believe that because of Israel's occupation of the West Bank and Palestinian territories, one should not engage in actual interaction in any official way with Israelis or Israeli organizations in particular, under the rubric of anti-normalization. And I'm wondering how you contend with those who advocate for policy of anti-normalization as a way of placing pressure on Israel to end the occupation.
I think you have enough problem in your country to brought our conflict to your country. So when people pro-Israel or pro-Palestine, I want them just to think, how could this help me or help more? Is this really will stop the war? Is this will improve our life? Or is this brought another problem to our countries? Like Trump now, when he announced about Gaza and how he turned it to a beautiful place, he thought that we will be happy, or the Israel will be happy about that. So sometimes when people try to involve themselves in our conflict, they make it much more complicated. So because of that, we said, please, don't pro-Israel, don't pro-Palestine, pro-peace. This is what we want and this is what we need. And we didn't even want to call for a ceasefire, because that means the war will return back after a few months, after maybe a year or after a few years. The only thing that we need is solution. And I will never, if you ask me what's the solution, I will tell you, I don't care if it's one state, two states, thousands of states. The only thing that I care about, to live in freedom, to have equal rights, to be not afraid when my son go to work and someone knock on my door or call me. I be always, every day afraid that when someone try to tell me that, sorry, you lost your son again. This is not the life that I want for my children or my grandchildren. I want them to live a normal life. People from both sides, not just my own people. I think we deserve to live together, and this is what we want.
Thank you for that. And more, you've been on a tour in the United States. You've been the president of the board for
Few months.
You've gotten a sense of what's going on in this country. You've spoken to many different audiences. What do you want from your audience? What would you like your audience to leave with, and what would you like them to do for Parent Circle? I mean, I can think of one thing you'd like them to do.
One thing?
I can think of one thing, which is to contribute money.
Yes.
But
This is, of course, we always welcome any support, and I think the work that we do is so important. And we don't get much support from Israeli bodies. We're just getting a lot of hardship internally in Israel. I don't think it's possible to raise money for our organization from within Israel. So any support we are getting from you and from people like you, this is what enables us to continue to do the important work that we do. And I would like to echo Lila's message. I think that if you are pro-Hamas, I mean, it is complicated, but if you are pro-Hamas, then it means that you are obviously against the existence of Israel. And in my opinion, if you are pro the right-wing Israeli government, it means that you are against the rights of the Palestinian people. So any side you take, which is to the extreme, in my opinion, is just fueling the violence and making our situation worse. So if you can be pro-solution, pro-dialogue, pro-life, and you can help to amplify this message and support either us or also other organizations in Israel with this message, this is what you can do, and this will help us.
And both of you are committed to doing it, even though the war goes on. The nightmare in Gaza continues. People continue to die in the dozens and hundreds every day. The hostages are still in captivity, and yet you find the strength and courage to continue, even in these days.
Before I came here, I looked at the news so fast, and I found that there's 2 men in the village next to my village have been killed from the Israeli soldiers. The Israeli soldiers said they threw stones against the Israeli who passed. And the Palestinians said they just returned back home from their work. So immediately I called my husband and said, please be sure that my 3 kids in the house. And he said, yeah, 2 of them is here and the other is not. And I've been really terrified because he always go to that village. And I've been waiting. I felt that the one moment like a year for me. And then he called me and he said, no, he's here, but he's went to his grandma to see her. So imagine to live a life like that every day. And this is not what we want.
Okay. I think we're now going to open up for your questions. So we can maybe take that microphone, and Maya's going to go around. Please raise your hand. I see a hand back there.
Hi, thank you so much. So my question is one more about process or tactics. Just to give you a little bit of background, my in-laws are Israeli, and one thing that I've noticed is that there's a lot of, like you were saying, more, dissatisfaction with the current administration in Israel, and there's a lot of outrage and support for bringing the hostages back. And I think that I see less empathy or ability to speak about the atrocities that the Israeli government and the military are causing in all of Palestine, right, West Bank and Gaza. And so just when you do speak there, what does that process look like when you're trying to lead with empathy and say, this is our pain and also there's other pain. Like within, I'm just really, part of it is just from a feeling like, it's very, I've seen in my own experience how difficult it is, and I would just love to learn from you guys.
Great. Just a reminder that after the next 15 minutes or so of questions, we're going to have a period for reflection and a dialogue amongst you in smaller circles. So just make note of that somewhat.
I believe in sharing my personal story in order to create empathy. We have in our organization this program that we call Dialogue meetings, and we used to go to many high schools in Israel. It's quite challenging with the current administration. We go everywhere we can. We initiate meetings and we try to be invited to anywhere we can. We used to come one Israeli and one Palestinian and show the dual stories in the same meeting. Today, because Palestinians are not allowed to enter Israel, we come 2 Israeli members to the same meeting. One person is presenting a story of a specific Palestinian and sharing his story, and the other one is sharing his own story. And in my opinion, the way to create empathy is through personal stories.
Thank you both. I'm really grateful to hear your stories, and Lila in particular. I thought your story was a new perspective for me, so thank you. In the United States, and since October 7th, as a Jewish woman living in the United States, it's been very difficult to have a conversation or a discussion that's based on facts and being able to hold more than one truth at the same time. I have friends that are very religious Jews, where it's Israel at all costs, something I happen to believe that we do. I believe in the right of Israel to exist. But I'm a human being, and I don't believe what's happening in Palestine to be fair or correct. So I guess what I'm asking you is how do we take the message that you shared today and have, what is that core message? Because just saying we believe in humanity, no one's listening. And especially in the United States, among the really significant rising tide of anti-Semitism and anti-Muslim violence. It's hard to have this conversation. So help us with a message so that we can initiate and hold a compassionate discussion with people that we spend our time with.
So it's not easy. It's difficult for us as well. So we are struggling with this. We have internal discussions and we keep brainstorming how to do it better. Sometimes I try to communicate with people I'm having conversations with by asking them questions. So I ask, for example, I had a difficult conversation with my father's sister. I tried to convince her to join the parent circle and she refused. And when I asked her why did she refuse, why doesn't she want to join, she said that she was too angry. And I empathize with her. I can understand the anger. At the same time, I try to challenge her and ask her to think beyond this anger. Think 5 years. Think into the future. How do you envision Israel? How do you envision us living in Israel? Do you think that the Palestinians are going to disappear? Are they going to go anywhere? And if the answer is no, then what do you envision? Because we already proved that investing money in weapons and in the most advanced technology, in the most sophisticated fence, didn't help us to protect ourselves on October 7th. Why would you think that if we don't change something drastically, we would be able to defend ourselves from the next wave of violence which will arrive if we don't reach a resolution? And she was actually honest enough to tell me that she needed to think about it, and we decided to meet in person when I'm back in Israel. But I try to probe difficult questions because people don't think about these things. They think Israel, we can more money, we're going to get more money, and we will invest more money in the Israeli army, and we will have more advanced. But do you seriously think that this is going to resolve it? And we, the Israelis, I agree with the right of Israel to exist, and I wouldn't have where to live if Israel is not there, because I don't have any other passport, and no one else is going to allow me to live anywhere else. And Laila is not going to go anywhere either. So we are destined to live in this region. How are we going to live there? Are we continuing to kill each other? Are we going to kill each other for the right of some of the belief of the Jewish people that we have the mitzvah to be all around the land? I mean, I feel ashamed and really sometimes disgrace to be Jewish when I see these actions of the ultra-right settlers. I don't understand how any Jewish person can sleep well when our people do these things. And anyone who supports them, anyone who supports this, in my opinion, this government, I don't understand how we can go on with our lives, how we can sleep.
I just had a thought about that as well. If you can't have these two people modeling what it looks like, which is hard to do on a daily basis here in the United States, one thing that I sometimes try as a kind of thought experiment, which is to ask people with whom I disagree, can you try to look at this through the lens of the other? Like, try and really insert yourself into their shoes and see what it looks like, just for a second. And sometimes people actually kind of have a moment in which they can sort of alter their own quite sort of single, tunnel-visioned view. But I think that thought experiment, and what I would add to that, insisting that people be exposed to not just the history, but the literature of the other, as it were. So I'm a big fan that one of the great corrections the idea that one of the great corrections we need to make in Jewish education is a central feature of it must be Palestinian literature. Not just history, but literature. To lend Jews a sense of what it looks like through Palestinian eyes. And that is an eminently humanizing act. It doesn't cost that much. Anyway, there are many other things we can talk about. I know there are many other questions. I want to make sure that we get at least a student question in, so we'll go right here. And I see me after.
Hello, thank you again, both of you, for coming to talk to us today. I had a question about the process of grief and how you talked about the anger of both of you and also the hate. Did overcoming that at some point, or joining the circle, did that change your relationship with your parents or with your son? How was it? How was your relationship, with grief changed after coming to terms, or after your forgiveness? That was a very difficult story.
Forgive, it's not about forget. I will never forget my son. I will never forget what happened to him. But forgiveness for me is to put the hatred and the anger away and don't think of them anymore. About the grief, the pain is a pain. It will never end. And sometimes by time you think if you will speak about it, it will become easy. But this is not the truth. It becomes deeper and deeper. Most of the time when I return back from any meetings, I go to my house, look down the bathroom, because this is the only place that my children couldn't enter, and start to cry, because I even didn't want them to saw me crying, because maybe as a mother, I always want my children to saw me so strong, could protect them, could do whatever I could to do the best thing that they could see. But I didn't want them to saw me weak and crying because of that story exactly. If anything else happened and I will cry in front of them. But about that story exactly, I don't want them to saw me crying. So the grief is still there. It will never end. But sometimes when you find a person like you who have the same story, it's become easier to speak to him. Like, I'll tell you about my parents. They passed away 4 years ago. My father, he was very healthy. He do exercise. He was like perfect. He didn't have any kind of disease. And suddenly he have a heart attack. And that was like a big shock for us, because I love him so much. And during that time it was COVID, and I couldn't go back there to say goodbye for him. And people came to me and they said, you should be strong, don't cry, you should be strong for your children. And I said, okay, maybe that's right. Then 5 months later, my mother refused to take her medicine because she's in love with my father. She couldn't live without him. And so after 5 months, she passed away. And the same people came and they said, you should be strong. I said, no, I don't want to be strong. Let me live with that grief. So I went to my room, looked down, put my hearing aid, started to listen to music with tears in my face. Like, sometimes I know that people try to tell you something to make you feel much comfortable, but sometimes what they said make you feel much more angry and sad. So sometimes just listen. Don't say anything. Don't even bring tissues or water. Just sit there and listen without doing anything. And this will help too much.
Okay, I think we have time for one more question. I know you've had your hand up for a while, so we'll let you ask your question.
Hi. I just wanted to take a moment and thank you both for coming and thank UCLA for taking the time to put this on. I also wanted to say that although I'm not a parent and I haven't lost a child, and I can't understand what that type of brokenness feels like, I do understand what a brokenness inside feels like. And I would love to know, other than a financial contribution, which I am incapable of making at this time, what else I could do to help further this organization and this cause. Because I have been deeply and emotionally moved this evening. I cannot tell you how both of your stories have touched me. I grew up in a way where I genuinely cannot fathom how this conflict exists, because I look at both of you and I just see two beautiful individuals. I have never grown up understanding how one person is lesser or greater than the other. I grew up an American Jewish person. I was never, ever raised with the idea that a Palestinian person was anything less or greater than myself. I have never understood the Nakba. I have never understood a lot of things that have occurred there. So my heart has always been with the Palestinian people and what they have gone through. Simultaneously, what occurred on October 7th was horrific. And I can't imagine what you've endured, Lila. I cannot imagine what you have endured. My heart is with both of you. So please, whatever I can do to further this cause, please let me know. I thank both of you for your time, and I thank UCLA.
Thank you.
I think you could do a good thing for us, and that will be great. When you return back to your community, start to talk about what you're here tonight. Tell your relative, your friends about this organization. It's not just me and more. There's 800 families. There's many people who have stories. They are not being able to tell it. And this will be a great thing for us. Thank you.
So I mentioned just a minute ago literature, and I just want to call your attention to a remarkable book which conveys some of the experience of people who have lost beloved family members on both sides. This is Cal McCann's A Paragon, which is just a kind of astounding literary feat, which really accompanies the stories that we've heard of these two remarkable women. Our hope is that in the future there will be no need for the parent circle. But alas, there still is, and I think we are all better off and more sensitive and attuned to what we need to do out in the world after listening to you. So thank you both, Lila and more, for being with us here at UCLA.